Konnichiwa. Today, we're going to go back to the Kaidan, the scary Japanese story that we started a few episodes ago, so that we can tackle some more of the challenges of reading real, native Japanese. I gathered all these episodes together in one playlist so you can look up the whole Kaidan in one place, and I'm putting that in a link just above my head right here. Now, to recap the story so far, our heroine went to a drinking party at her senpai's apartment, and walking home late at night, she discovered that she'd left her keitai, her portable telephone, in senpai's apartment. So she went back, knocked on the door, and there was no answer. She tried the handle and the door was unlocked, so she walked in, and it was completely dark in there. So she assumed that senpai had gone to bed already. She thought of putting the lights on and waking her, but remembering that she'd been pretty drunk at the time when she left, she decided not to. She groped around in the dark to find her keitai and left. And that's the story so far, so let's see what happened the next day.翌日、彼女が先輩のアパートの前を通りかかると、なぜか大勢の警官が集まっている。事情を聞いて、彼女は驚いた。なんと、あの先輩が部屋で殺されたというのだ。部屋は荒らされており、物取りの犯行かもしれないという。あの時電気をつけて先輩を起こして、きちんと戸締まりをするようにって注意していたら、こんなことにならなかったのに。彼女は自責の念でいっぱいになりながら、昨日、その部屋にいたことを警官に話すと、部屋の奥から刑事が現れて、彼女に見てほしいものがあると言った。部屋の中でこんなメモを見つけたんですが、これの意味がわからなくて困ってたんですよ。何か心当たりはありませんか？彼女はそのメモを見て、青ざめた。そこには、こう書かれていた。
電気をつけなくてよかったな。
Yokogensu, that means next day. This one, yoka, as you see, the kanji is feathers or wings, and the kanji was stand. So we could say that it was the day standing in the wings, waiting to come on stage, which it now has. Yokogetsu, the next day. Kinajo wa senpai no apato no mae wo torikakaru to. So we have the first logical applause here, and we have a to, which is the if-when conditional. So something's going to follow it, but let's just look at this first one. Torikakaru means literally pass hang, but what it means, what the Japanese dictionaries say, is that it means chodo sono baisho ni toru, which means really just happened to be passing that particular place. So she didn't go there for any purpose, she just happened to be passing by. Naziku, oze no keikan ga atsumatte kiru. Oze means a large number, of crowd. It refers to people. Teikan, as I'm sure you know, is a policeman. So, nazeka, for some reason, a lot of policemen were gathered. Atsumatte kiru. Atsumaru is gather. Atsumatte iru exist in a state of being gathered. A lot of policemen were gathered. Jijo o kite kanojo wa hodoroita. Jijo is the situation or circumstances. In English, we probably say she asked what was going on. And Odoroita usually gets translated as be surprised, but it can be stronger than that, and we can see that it's stronger than that in this case. When she asked the situation, she was startled or shocked. And the Kinojo wa here also throws emphasis onto that Odoroita, and we will talk about that a video in the near future, this emphasizing quality of Maya. When she asked the situation, she was startled or shocked by what she heard. Naruto. And then what? What's this? Naruto. Senpai wa heya de korosareta toいうのだ. That senpai in that apartment received the action of being killed. And he says, receptor is she received the action being killed. Toyu no da. Toyu, that's what she was told, that's what was said. No da. Now we've talked about these nda, no da endings in another video. So this is really saying it was that the senpai had in that room received the action of being killed. That's what it was. That's what was going on. And she asked about the situation. It was that the senpai had been killed in that room. Heya wa arasarete ori. Arasu is storm or violate or mess up. So the room received the action of being messed up, violated. And the helper, the septive verb, is in ke form and followed by ori. Now, oru, as we talked about in previous episode in this series, oru is literally like the old-fashioned way of saying iru. So, arasarete oru is the same as arasarete iru. Was in a state of having received, being violated or messed up, and then that oru is put into its I stem, ori, which, again, as we discussed before, is a slightly more literary way of joining two clauses in a compound sentence. So this joins this clause to the next clause, which gives a conjecture about the situation. The room was in a state of having received, being messed up or violated, and monotori no henko kamoshirenai toyu. Monotori is mono, toru, take. So, monotoru, take thing, monotori, the noun of taking things. So monotori here is theft. Shenfo is a criminal act, a criminal doing literally, but a criminal act. So, this was perhaps or probably a crime of theft or burglary. Toyu was said, and who said it? Well, presumably the police. Now the next part comes in quotation marks, those square Japanese quotation marks, and this is something she's thinking to herself. And we're going to see there are a number of clauses joined together here. And then they all end with tera before we pass on to the comment about them. So all these clauses that culminate in them, tera, ending, if statements, conditional if statements. We've talked about the conditional tera, haven't we? So, Anojoki, at that time, Denki o tsukete, senpai wo okoshite. If I had put on the light, chanto tojimari o suru, yo ni te. Now chanto means properly or correctly. Tojimari to is door, shimaru is closing. So tojimari is door closing. And then o suru, you could just say tojimari o suru, do closing the door, but here it's saying tojimari o suru yo ni te chuhei o shintara. Yo ni in this case means making something become like something. So what it's really saying is made it so that the door was properly closed. And then that te is a shortening of Toyu. We've talked about that. So Toyu, meaning in this case that kind of. Chui oshite. Chui is care of caution. You often see signs in Japan, Chui oshite kudasai. Take care, please. Act cautiously. If she had in this way, acted cautiously by turning on the lights, waking senpai, making sure that the door was properly closed. And then this all ends with the terror. If she'd done this, こんなことにならなかったのに。そんなこと is a state of affairs like this state of affairs. にならなかったのに. Now, as we see, this is a logical clause, and it needs a subject. It needs a ga marked a car. So what is it? Well, it's a zero car, isn't it? Zero ga. こんなことにならなかった. It would not have become a thing like this. Now, what does that mean? I think we can see a very close English analogy to this. In English, we would probably say it wouldn't have come to this. What she's saying is it wouldn't have become this kind of situation. So it's very much the same kind of expression, strategy. If she'd done all those things, if she'd made sure everything was safe and proper in the house, even at the risk of disturbing a drunken senpai, this terrible thing wouldn't have happened. 彼女が自責の念でいっぱいになりながら、自責 means self-blame, self-reproach. Seki here, this kanji is the same as the kanji for semaru, criticize or blame. And the ji is self, so 自責でいっぱいなりながら. Nagara, as I think we know, is a helpful word, meaning doing the verb it's attached to while doing something else. And what she's doing here is becoming full of jiseki no nen, thoughts or feelings of self-blame. So while becoming full of feelings of self-blame, 昨日その部屋に行ったことを定款に話すと. Now, と is giving us an if-when statement, but we'll just deal with this to start with. 昨日その部屋に行ったこと means the fact that she was in the room yesterday. Now, we know she's talking about a person or an animal here because it's ita. So the only thing it can be is herself, the fact that she was in the room. Had it been 昨日その部屋にあったこと, it might be saying the thing that took place in the room yesterday. When we know it can't be that, because it's ita, not hatta. So we're talking about a person, we're talking about her. 昨日その部屋にいたことはジェイタンに話す. And then to, which is our if-when statement. So when she told the police the fact that she'd been in the room yesterday, 部屋の奥から刑事が現れて. Now again, it's ending in the term form, it's going to lead on to something else. So it's a complex sentence, but it's not really difficult because it's made up of clear logical clauses building one on another into a larger whole. So, 部屋の奥から刑事が現れて. From the interior of the room, from inside the room. 奥, the inside, the interior. 刑事, that's a police detective. 現れた, appeared. A police detective appeared from inside the room. And 彼女に見てほしいものがあると言った. Now, 見てほしい means want someone else to see, just as we explained in a previous lesson, Mite morao means have someone else. See? Mite hoshi means want someone else to see. And just as with morao, the person who you have doing the seeing, or want to do the seeing, or want to do anything else, is backed with ni, as the target of a pull sentence. So morao and hoshi, they are receiving pull type sentences, so they're indirect object. There's the person doing the thing that we want them to do, that we receive them doing, etc. So it's same. Tenojo ni mite hoshii mono ga aru. The want her to see thing exists. There's something I want you to look at, is how we put it in English. To itta, the detective said, there's something I want you to look at. And then in quotes, these are the words of the detective. Hei no naka de, inside the room. Konne memo kom mitsukaten desu ga. This kind of memo, already this memo, we found, mitsukaten found, discovered, saw. We discovered this memo. Desu ga, desu ga. Once again we have this des, no des ending. So what is saying? It is that we found this memo in the room. That's what it is. This is the thing. It is that we found this memo in the room. But, kore no imi ga wakaranakute. Once again, we're leading into something else. Its meaning does not do understandable. And komaton desu yo. Komaru is be at a loss, not know what to do. So, because its meaning does not do understandable, because we can't understand its meaning, as we'd say in English, we're at a loss. And again, that des ending, it is that because we can't understand its meaning, we're at a loss. Kanojo wa sono memo o mite aozameta. She looked at the memo, and aozameru, in English this usually gets translated as turned pale. What it literally means is ao is of course blue, and the zameru here means to fade or lose color, so she faded to blue, is what it's literally saying. And you've probably seen in anime and manga, etc., that this is in fact how they tend to represent this situation. You often see people's face shaded blue, usually from the forehead down to about the middle of the face. So turning blue is the way they represent what in English we call turning pale, and we see it when someone is shocked or sick or something like that. So her face turned pale. Soko ni wa so kakarete ita. In that place, that's to say, on that piece of paper, it had received being written this way, was in a state of having received being written this way. In English we just say, this is what was written. And what was written? Tenki otsukenakute yokatta na. It's a good thing you didn't tell the night song. So what do you make of that? Who read that memo? And what did he or she mean by it? What went on in the room that night? I'm just an android, so this isn't my area of expertise. If you have an idea, please let us all know in the comments below. And if you have any other questions or comments, please put them in the comments below and I will answer as usual. I'd like to thank my gold Koheshi patrons, my producer angels who make these videos possible, and all my patrons and supporters on Patreon and everywhere. And I'd like to thank you for attending this lesson. Korekara mo yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Class dismissed.